The movie kicks off on Halloween night in Haddonfield, where Corey Cunningham arrives at the Allen household to babysit a boy named Jeremy while his parents head to a party. Mrs. Allen instructs Corey to put Jeremy to bed early as the boy is still shaken by the Halloween massacre that happened the year before. Instead, Corey puts on a horror movie, which Jeremy confidently claims doesn't scare him. Corey heads to the kitchen for a snack, but hears a strange noise. Upon investigating, he finds Jeremy missing. Suddenly, Jeremy starts screaming for help from upstairs. Grabbing a knife for protection, Corey follows the sound to the attic, where he gets locked inside. A prank orchestrated by Jeremy, who refuses to let him out. At that moment, Jeremy's parents return home. In a panic, Corey kicks the attic door, accidentally knocking Jeremy over the balcony. The boy falls to his death, smashing his face on the floor below. The parents rush to their son, horrified. Mrs. Allen sees Corey holding the knife and accuses him of murder. Fast forward 3 years, Laurie Strode is living with her granddaughter Allison as they continue to process the trauma of Karen's murder. Laurie has been working on a book recounting her experiences with Michael Myers and the lasting impact of his rampage on Haddonfield. Meanwhile, Allison, now employed at the hospital, is pulled over on her way to work by her ex-boyfriend, Officer Doug Mullaney, who still has feelings for her. He also advises her to get her car's muffler fixed. Corey, who has been acquitted of murder, works at a garage junkyard. His boss, Ronald, gives him a motorcycle as a gift. One day, Corey stops by a convenience store to pick up chocolate milk, but is confronted by a group of teenagers, Terry, Billy, Stacy, and Margot, who ask him to buy them beer. When Corey declines, they recognize him as the psycho babysitter. Terry provokes Corey until he crushes the milk bottle in his hand, cutting himself deeply. Angry about the spilled milk, Terry shoves Corey to the ground. Just then, Laurie appears and scares the teens away. Laurie helps Corey to his feet and encourages him to slash the tires on Terry's car as payback. Afterward, she takes Corey to the hospital, where Allison treats the wound on his hand. While there, Corey accidentally knocks over some equipment in Dr. Mathis' office, prompting Mathis to rudely scold Allison. Corey tells Allison she shouldn't let Mathis talk to her that way. He also mentions that he works at a garage and offers to fix the muffler on her car. Allison grows fond of Corey and invites him out, encouraged at home by both Laurie and Lindsay Wallace, who see the potential for her to start a new relationship. Meanwhile, Corey lives with his overbearing mother Joan, who still treats him like a child. Joan is also shown to be involved with Ronald, Corey's boss. At work, Corey tries teaching Allison how to ride his motorcycle but notices Terry arriving with his father. The father chastises Terry loudly, insisting he get his car fixed. Elsewhere, Laurie visits the supermarket and runs into Frank Hawkins. Their conversation reveals a lighthearted flirtation, hinting at their mutual attraction. However, Laurie's day takes a darker turn when, on her way out, she is confronted by a relative of Sandra, the woman who barely survived Michael's attack. Sandra, left mute after Michael drove a light fixture through her throat, witnessed her husband's brutal murder. Her relative blames Laurie, accusing her of drawing Michael back to the town and reigniting the chaos. Later, Allison invites Corey to a Halloween party. He shows up wearing a scarecrow mask and for a moment seems to enjoy himself. However, things take a turn when he runs into Mrs. Allen. Drunk and bitter, she accuses Corey of deliberately killing Jeremy. Overwhelmed, Corey leaves the party. Allison tries to console him, but he accuses her of exposing him to people who still view him as a murderer, storming off in frustration. As Corey walks home, he encounters Terry and his friends. The group resumes harassing him, though Margot shows hesitation, sensing they're crossing a line. Corey attempts to leave, but Terry and Billy provoke him further. Frustrated, Corey lashes out, telling Terry his father despises him, as evidenced by their interaction at the garage. Enraged, Terry and Billy throw Corey off a bridge. The impact renders him unconscious and the teens flee the scene. In the shadows, an unseen figure, revealed to be Michael Myers, drags Corey into the sewers. Corey awakens in the dark, disoriented, and begins searching for a way out. Suddenly, Michael grabs him by the throat. As Corey struggles, Michael locks eyes with him, seemingly recognizing the darkness within Corey, hinting that he senses Corey has taken a life before. Instead of killing him, Michael releases him. As Corey stumbles out of the sewers, a homeless man armed with a knife confronts him. The man demands that Corey return to the sewers and retrieve Michael's mask. After a tense confrontation, Corey fights the homeless man and fatally stabs him. Shaken but determined, he goes to Allison's house to convince her to join him. He takes her to the abandoned Allen house and opens up about what happened with Jeremy. Later, they go out for dinner, but the evening takes a sour turn when Allison is approached by her ex Doug. A heated exchange nearly erupts between Corey and Doug before Doug backs off and leaves with his friends. Meanwhile, Laurie becomes increasingly uneasy about Corey and Allison spending time together. She notices something familiar, something dark, in Corey's eyes that reminds her of Michael. Concerned, Laurie visits Corey's house to speak with his mother, Joan. Although Laurie tries to show sympathy, Joan lashes out, blaming Laurie for the town's obsession with Michael and accusing Haddonfield of turning Corey into the town's new bougie man after Michael disappeared. Later that night, Corey drops Allison off at home and they share their first kiss. As Corey rides away on his motorcycle, he notices Doug following him in his car. Corey heads back under the bridge toward the sewers, where Doug discovers the body of the homeless man. Corey taunts Doug, luring him into the sewer. Inside, Corey teams up with Michael, who is visibly weaker. Together, they attack Doug, with Corey holding him down as Michael repeatedly stabs him. Afterward, Corey returns to Allison's house and their relationship becomes intimate. At work, Allison becomes increasingly frustrated with her colleague Deb, who was promoted over her because of Dr. Mathis's favoritism. Deb mocks Allison, calling out her history as Michael's survivor and her connection to Corey, the so-called psycho babysitter. Allison finally snaps, telling Deb to shut up. Laurie, still uneasy, goes to the bar with Lindsay. There, they run into Mr. Allen, who surprises them with his perspective. Unlike his wife, he doesn't harbor resentment toward Corey. Instead, he criticizes the people of Haddonfield for using the tragedy as a way to make the Allen family's pain about themselves. Mr. Allen confesses that he once tried to talk to Corey, but when he looked into Corey's eyes, he felt that the person Corey used to be was gone, replaced by something much darker. Meanwhile, Deb visits Dr. Mathis's home for an affair. While getting ready, she hears a commotion and steps outside, only to witness Corey, now wearing his scarecrow mask, violently attacking Mathis. Corey suffocates Mathis with a plastic bag before stabbing him repeatedly. Before Deb can escape, Michael appears, grabs her by the throat, and impales her with his knife, leaving her hanging lifeless. The next day, Corey takes Allison out again, and they climb to the top of the radio station building. Together, they make plans to leave Haddonfield and start fresh elsewhere. As they descend, they encounter the station's DJ, Willie, who ridicules them in the same mocking tone he uses on his radio show. Willie threatens them to leave his property, adding to Corey's growing resentment. Returning home, Corey faces another confrontation with Joan. She scolds and slaps him, but when she tries to kiss him in a bizarre display of control, Corey pushes her away, disgusted. On Halloween Day, Corey spends the night at the abandoned Allen house. Laurie confronts him there, warning him to stay away from Allison. Corey lashes out, accusing Laurie of manipulating them and calling her a freak. Before he can react further, Laurie seemingly vanishes, leaving Corey alone and rattled. In a panic, Corey calls Allison, urging her to leave town with him immediately, claiming that Laurie tried to kill him. Desperate for control, Corey returns to the sewers, where he confronts Michael. A struggle ensues, and despite Michael's resistance, Corey manages to overpower him and take his mask. At home, Allison packs her belongings, ready to leave with Corey, but an argument erupts when Laurie tries to stop her. Meanwhile, Corey escalates his revenge by scratching the word psycho into Terry's car, luring him and his group to the junkyard. At the junkyard, the teens find Corey's motorcycle and attempt to tow it. While trying to get the bike running, Billy discovers a horrific sight. One of their friends has been killed, a drumstick shoved through his eye. Chaos ensues as Corey drives a van straight at Stacy and Marga, forcing them to flee. Marga isn't fast enough and becomes trapped under a fence when Corey smashes through it. Stacy attempts to help her, but Corey brutally beats her to death with a wrench. Terry runs to Ronald for help. Ronald hands Terry a rifle, but when Ronald recognizes Corey as the attacker, he tries to defuse the situation. Before he can intervene, Terry accidentally shoots Ronald in the head. Seizing the moment, Corey overpowers Terry, shoving a blowtorch into his mouth, melting his face in a gruesome display. With Margaret still pinned, Corey stomps on her skull and runs over her body, leaving a trail of carnage in his wake. Corey returns home and murders his overbearing mother, finally severing all ties to his past. Next, he heads to the radio station, where he kills Willie's receptionist before confronting the DJ. Allison waits at the agreed meeting spot, unaware of Corey's rampage, but he never shows up. Frustrated and worried, she tries calling him, but her attempts go unanswered. At the same time, Laurie grows increasingly desperate to protect her granddaughter. Unable to reach Allison, Laurie calls 911 and reports an apparent suicide. As Corey sneaks into Laurie's house, he hears a gunshot and finds what looks like a splattered mess, only to realize it's a decoy, a smashed pumpkin. Laurie anticipated his move and ambushes him, shooting Corey and causing him to tumble down the stairs. Realizing his plans are unraveling, Corey stabs himself in the neck. Laurie moves to remove the knife just as Allison arrives home. The scene looks incriminating, and Allison, devastated, flees before Laurie can explain. Moments later, Michael arrives, reclaiming his mask from Corey, who's barely alive. In a final act of defiance, Corey tries to fight Michael for the mask. Michael swiftly ends it by snapping Corey's neck, killing him for good. As Allison drives away, she receives a call from the police about Laurie's reported suicide attempt. The pieces start falling into place and she turns back. Meanwhile, Laurie and Michael face off in their ultimate battle. Michael hurls Laurie across the room and tries to force her hand into a running garbage disposal. Summoning her strength, Laurie grabs his knife and pins one of his hands to the kitchen counter. She uses another knife to pin his other hand and then traps his legs beneath the refrigerator. Unmasking Michael, Laurie looks at the man who terrorized her for decades. She sees him not as a monster, but as a mortal man. With this moment of clarity, Laurie slits his throat. Michael makes a final attempt to strike, but Allison arrives just in time to help. Together, they slit his wrists, ending his reign of terror once and for all. As the police arrive, Michael's body is carried to the junkyard. The entire town gathers to witness the final act. Michael's corpse is fed into an industrial compactor, ensuring there is no chance of his return. Haddonfield can finally breathe again, its nightmare truly over. In the aftermath, Allison reconciles with Laurie, admitting that Corey had succumbed to evil in the end. She decides to leave Haddonfield, carrying her parents' wedding rings as a keepsake. Laurie finishes her memoir, reflecting that while Michael is gone, evil itself is a force that never dies. It simply changes form. In the final moments, Laurie is visited by Frank Hawkins. They share a quiet moment, hinting at a new beginning together. The movie closes with shots of Laurie's empty house, Michael's mask resting ominously on a coffee table as faint breathing echoes in the background. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to subscribe for more.